everything you should be doing and thinking about optimizing, it should be making the website easier to use. Is it answering a question or a concern? Or is it motivating this person, like actually motivating this person?
Will Laurenson from Customers Who Click. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, thanks. Really glad to have you on. So to start off with then, you're in the e-commerce space, you specialize in conversion rate optimization, or CRO as it's sometimes known. Just for the benefit of our listeners, do you want to just give us a bit of a brief run through of exactly what that entails?
CRO is conversion rate optimization. So it's a process of improving the conversion rates of a website, normally iteratively. So running A/B tests, running research and analysis on websites and their audiences to find potential blockers and opportunities to improve conversion rates, and then using A/B testing to test those hypotheses, generate results for a business, and then look for that next step as well.
Okay, and what I suppose I'm just curious, how broad are kind of the blockers that you run into? Is it quite narrow? Do you kind of see the same thing every time, or is it kind of you just don't know what each day is going to be kind of thing?
So there are three areas that we tend to focus on, which apply to pretty much any business, which is usability. How does the website work? How easily does it help me find the products I'm looking for and buy them? We've got anxiety, which are the questions and concerns that a customer might have about either your business or your products. And then we've got motivation, which is the kind of excitement factor and the tricks and tips that nudge people over the line to actually get them to make that purchase and commit. Broadly speaking, everything we do falls into those three categories, and all three of those apply to every business, but you just don't know what it's going to be. Right, so it's very much taking into account who the audience is, what the type of business is, what those products are, and sometimes the consideration process that people have when making those purchases. So an example would be, it's quite often to see on a lot of lower ticket e-commerce sites, a timer saying your basket is being held for 15 minutes. Or if it's related to tickets or something which is actually limited, like a hotel room or a flight ticket, this ticket's being held for 15 minutes. That encourages you to make that purchase, right? If you've got to that stage where you've added it to your cart and you're saying, yeah, I probably want to book this, that timer just makes you think, right, I need to, if I don't do it in this 15 minutes, I'm probably going to miss out. That doesn't work in higher ticket sales, where people want to consider their purchase a bit longer. It's a bit more to spend. They need to be more sure if this is the right thing for them. And if you start to rush them a bit towards the end of that conversion journey, it has a negative impact. So I can't remember what the actual percentage was, but I think we generated about $86,000 a month for one brand just by removing that timer from their website.
You don't want to be pressured, when you're about to spend a large amount of money, you don't want to be pushed and someone telling you you've got 15 minutes,
Yeah, exactly. In this case, it was designer lighting. Average order value was about $800, reasonable amount to spend. But also, this is something that someone's thinking, I'm going to put this up on the ceiling or outside the house, and the intention is for it to sit there for 10 years, 5-10 years, or whatever, a long amount of time. I want to get this decision right. And if you start to use little tricks like that to just nudge people over the line, they just don't respond particularly well.
Okay. So it's a little bit, I guess, of user experience, then a little bit of honing in on exactly what that target audience is to engage them effectively.
Yeah, exactly. So normally we're looking at analytical behavior. So Google Analytics, where do people browse the website? What pages are they dropping off? Which area of the funnel do they drop off on? Then we've got behavioral, which is looking at heat maps, session recordings. What are they actually doing on that page? What elements are they interacting with? What are they not interacting with? What are they seeing? And then there's the research side, which is actually speaking to customers, might be running surveys. It could be actually doing interviews with them to find out either, why did they not interact with this certain element on the page? For example, if you've got a quiz or something, or, a game as part of that page that you want people to interact with, if people aren't doing that, you can see that in the data, right? You can see that in analytics, you can see it in heat maps and session recordings, but you don't know why. So then you have to go speak to customers and find out why they're not interacting with this.
Okay. Are you getting consistent answers, or how do you manage? Do you need like to talk to 100 people, or if you talk to 20, it's enough? How do you approach it?
It does depend a bit on what data you're looking for. So if we were trying to find out why someone's not clicking the start button on a game, that you might be able to do with 10 people, right? If you get 10 people and 5 of them say, "Oh, I didn't even notice the button there," or I just didn't see the button, then you know that's probably an issue. If you get a bunch of people who say, why would I want to play a game on a website, and they don't get the point of it, then that's another thing that tells you quite clearly, all right, maybe the messaging is wrong here. But if you wanted to find out maybe what's the main reason someone hasn't made a purchase, or what's the main desired outcome that customers have from your products, you probably do need a few more people to identify actual patterns and important pieces of information. Because if you ask 20 people, you might get 20 different answers, or you might get two. I mean, it's kind of the same, looking at it the same way as actually running an A/B test. Right? If we run an A/B test to 100 people on each side, you know, you're taking a big risk when if you actually decide on a decision based on that, because you might get 5 conversions on the control, you might get 50 on the variant. But when you scale it up to 10,000 people on each side, or 100,000 people on each side, you might get 110 versus 95, which is actually a much smaller gap, especially percentage-wise. So the same logic applies really. If you ask 10 people for their opinion on what's wrong or what's right, you're kind of risking it with some information that's probably a bit light. Whereas if you ask 1,000 people, you're going to be much more certain. But then you've got to apply different techniques, right? You can't get on a call with 1,000 people. It's just going to take you too long, take forever. So what we'll tend to do is we'll run an email survey to people. We'll ask a few questions, more open-ended. Then we'll do some interviews, and again, it's quite open-ended. You get a chance to really dig into things there. So, the example that always comes up is price. A big reason people don't buy is price. That's what they say. It's almost never actually price, it's always value. So then you need to find out, well, what value are these people trying to get from this product? And then if you start to dig into that, after 50 interviews, which is still quite a lot, you might end up with a few common themes that keep popping up. Then you can do an email out to your audience again and do a multiple choice and say which one of these is your kind of desired outcome from this product. You wouldn't phrase it like that, but what are you trying to achieve with this product? A, B, C, D. Get people to tell you from that, and then you can go use that in your messaging, ads, and emails, and everything.
Before we get deeper into this, I was just curious, what's your kind of journey as an entrepreneur? How did you get interested in this field? Like, what was the journey to get here?
I kind of just fell into this, really. I didn't even know about, I probably knew about CRO for quite a while because I came across the CXL blog and website 13 years ago or whatever. But it didn't really, that's not what I was doing, so I didn't focus on it too much. But it was probably about 18 months into my first job or first company that I started to work on product development. In fact, on a brand new product development for this company. And so that did involve doing some research, finding out what people wanted, how they would use this particular app, how we should talk about it. And what we came up with was this app was for people who left work late, or they had some work drinks or something, and they just needed some short last minute plans. Right, so we'd be able to offer them a restaurant booking within 15 minutes. We'd be able to offer them cinema tickets or theatre tickets, something that was coming up really soon near then. Yeah, so I started working on design and development for that as well. And then that led to my next job, where I ended up having to have their website ripped to pieces and rebuilt because it was terrible and their business model didn't work. And so, yeah, I think from the very start, it's always been, what do people want from this business? And how do we get them to that point in the most efficient way, while obviously being able to charge for it? Right, that's the bit the customer doesn't want. That's the bit we want. And then, from then on, I worked for a couple of tech startups, and there again, it was, I think especially in the startup space where you haven't got the perfect solution yet. Right, everyone's well aware of that. But what I found tended to happen was that people believed that the perfect solution was the actual product experience itself. So one was a digital magazines service, right? So like Netflix for magazines, or Spotify for magazines. You could read as many magazines as you wanted. And they were kind of focusing on, how do you read the magazine? How do we make the magazine itself easier to read? And on iOS at least, you could actually turn the page as if, and you've got a little animation as if you were turning a magazine page. But the issues we were having weren't related to the magazine itself. People were generally fine with that. The issues we had were the sign-up process, discoverability, so people actually finding the magazines they wanted to read in the first place, and just general usability. People weren't seeing the value of the app, and we weren't explaining that value well enough. So initially that led to more email work, right? I knew I had to get people engaging with the app better, signing up more easily. So that actually resulted in a lot of email work. And then a bit later from that, I started to work more on product. And I was saying, well, this is the feedback we're getting from customers. It's the product. The product's the problem, not the acquisition side, not the ad spend. And yeah, so that just kind of led me down that route really of not really focusing too much on the acquisition side, and not having too much interest in Facebook ads, PPC, that sort of thing. Just really being interested in, what do our customers want? How do we give that to them?
Do you mean like the onboarding process, or do you mean like explaining the product? You say, I'm not focusing on the acquisition, which is fine. Then using the product, like the product itself was not the issue. So that's the in-between where you are focusing. It's more like trying to onboard people and explain them the right way of using something, yeah?
In that case, yeah. I mean, their app was more comparable to a SaaS platform, really. Right, you have to create an account, you get a free trial, and then we have to get you to use it. But then when people are using it and they understand it, they like the product, the actual service that it offers. They get the results from it, right? So people were able to read magazines, they were enjoying reading magazines. But the issue was they weren't finding new magazines. They weren't, the stuff outside of the actual magazine itself that they wanted to read, that was all a bit of a mess. So that's what we were optimizing for: create a general better experience, allow them to get more users on the app as well, all of these things. So a lot of the work was focused around, how do we communicate that better and those benefits, and how do we get people to see more value in the $9.99? Because I think what was happening originally was people were looking at the $9.99 subscription and comparing it to the one magazine they were reading at that time. And so saying, well, this magazine costs £3, or maybe at most of the magazines about £5, an expensive one. So they were like, well, if I'm spending £5 a month on a magazine, why am I spending $9.99 on a subscription? So we were having to say to them, well, actually, so we actually built this into our kind of welcome flows. I think we worked out if we could get someone to read 3 magazines or 7 magazines in the first 3 days, I think it was, that was a big indication that they would pay and continue after their free trial. So we also started to put the monetization side into it, or the monetary factor in, and said, well, originally, because we didn't have the dynamic, ability to do this, we were just saying on average, the average customer saves. I can't remember. It was either saves £43 or would have spent £43 on magazines that they have read through the app, so something like that. So we were trying to compare it to the $9.99, and then a bit later, once we got the tech team on board, we managed to develop it and say, this is how much you would have spent on magazines if you had bought each individual magazine. So that really helped show the value of the product.
Interesting, yeah. And it was just like a journey to get to like the right way of delivering that, essentially.
Yeah. And the way we did it originally was absolutely fine because it's an MVP, right? That's how you should approach things. That's how you should test and learn, because we could have spent ages developing that well, probably not ages, but we could have spent a bit more time and resource developing that dynamic ability first, and it might not have worked.
Do you have like specific tactics or approaches to be able to deliver this value, to show this value? Because that's a really interesting one, because we are facing the exact same issue at the moment with the Gamify, because we are coming up with a new version of the website, new version of the platform with improved features. And it's always quite difficult for us to find the best way to explain the added value of the product, especially because we are talking to different kind of customers. On your example with the magazine, I guess it was more or less like readers, so they were all maybe the same kind of clients. But with us, for example, with a gamification platform like Gamification, we've got like a small and medium businesses, larger corporations, so those guys are not looking for the same stuff, or at least they don't realize the potential of it for the business the same way. So can you treat all the customers the same way, or how do you manage to make a difference between those segments?
Most of what I do is e-commerce now, with physical products, right? So it's difficult to explain something to someone like that, because they can, they know how they're experiencing the product, right? If I'm trying to take an example, like a beauty product, you can't say to someone, you've used this for 6 weeks now, you're now 29% more attractive, right? It just doesn't work. But with tech, with digital products, you can do that stuff, right? You can say, your conversion rate is X% higher because of these actions you've taken, or because of this app, or your customers are this much more valuable, or we've driven you this amount of revenue. It does become a bit easier, and that was the case with this magazine app, right? We could see the data, so we just had to turn that data into something the customers would understand. So we knew how many magazines on average a trial user was reading and a paid customer was reading. So then we just applied an average cost and started showing that.
Even in this case, you still have a difference between someone that's reading like 1 magazine per month and someone that's reading 10. The guy who is reading 10 is gonna see the value of the $9.99 product right away, when the guy who is reading just 1 will be, that's twice as much as what I'm spending just now.
Yeah, so obviously when we first launched that initiative, we were saying the average member saves this amount compared to buying those magazines individually. And later down the line, it would have been, this is how much you've spent or would have spent. But we also knew that people who had read under a certain amount of magazines were less valuable. They were seeing less value in the product, and so we had to message them differently anyway. So they would be going into a separate flow. They would get different messaging. So again, like with digital products, it's much easier. When it comes to trying to explain this with e-commerce products, much more difficult. You're relying a lot more on social proof, on your own kind of surveys and data collection to kind of put those averages together, really, and say, 97% of our customers are satisfied with the product, and with some testimonials, and you can do that sort of messaging. Obviously, there are some products out there where people can literally say the average customer loses X amount of weight after 3 months, right? Because if it's the sort of product where you collect that data, I think there's an app called Noom. I imagine they collect that sort of data, because their whole thing is around weight loss, body transformation. I'm pretty sure they ask you to add your weight probably every day.
Let's just go to a minute to talk about CRO in sort of the D2C space. When you kind of take on a new client, are you seeing some like commonalities in terms of where they've kind of reached a point where they're like, we need to get a specialist to look at this? Is there some commonality you're seeing there where people start to like come and approach you? Like, is there a common pitch or appeal?
I'd say there are two. They're at very, very different ends of the spectrum, right? One is bigger, more established companies who just know they can do better, but they are good, right? If they didn't improve anymore, they've got a viable business, they're making money, but they want more money, right? They've got growth targets, they want to keep going. The other end of the spectrum, you get those businesses who are saying, we're not right. Something's not right here. Our conversion rate is not good enough. We need to fix this. And it's much easier to work with the bigger businesses because they're not under pressure, right? And CRO is a bit of it's a reasonably long-term project. It's rare to get immediate results. So it's easy to work with those sort of businesses, but also at the businesses that are struggling, a lot of them, it's actually because of their acquisition. Right? They might have some messaging incorrect on their website, which they just need to do some research in and check on. But they're not really looking for A/B testing at that stage. They're either looking for, we need to seriously overhaul the messaging on this website because it's not resonating, or it's the advertising side is, something's not right there. Their ads are targeting the wrong people, or again, their messaging is not resonating, and that's going to keep your conversion rate low. I think as long as you've got, usability wise, your website, you've just got to be able to add a product, find a product, add it to cart, buy it. If you can do that, you should, and you're driving the right audience to your website, you should have an okay conversion rate. So if you've got a problem, it's either because your messaging is wrong. So there's a t-shirt company called True Classics, which I don't know how accurate this is. I read the other day they're doing 400 million a year in revenue, selling plain t-shirts, hoodies, joggers, that sort of thing, plain products. But they've got really good messaging around the fit of the product. They say it's the best fitting t-shirt you're ever going to have. They advertise a lot on TikTok. But they've got a lot of video content on their website, so they have done a lot to optimize it. But if they just had a website which said, here, buy some plain t-shirts for 20 quid each, I can't imagine they'd sell many. But they've got that messaging right. They've really gone hard on that perfect fit, and they've just got so much evidence on it as well. So that's why it works for them. And I think it's the same with a lot of other brands. If you've got a website that works, but you've got a conversion problem, it's either you're not targeting the anxieties and the motivations, right? You're not explaining what, you're not answering their questions about a product, and you're not motivating them to buy it, or your advertising is messed up, as I said.
You've kind of explained about like the A/B testing with the big businesses that aren't under pressure, but I suppose that's almost what's almost more interesting is the ones that are under pressure, because it adds a certain, I guess, excitement from your end, because you're right on the front line in the thick of it. Are you straight away looking, is it the messaging pretty much always, or are there any other like kind of things that you look for or zone in on sort of early doors?
Yeah, we'd have a look over the website, do a heuristic analysis of the website, and just make sure, like I said, it works properly, and there's no major concerns with the kind of technical side of the website. And then it's, do we think, we're looking for, is there anything special about this website? Right? How is this product different and unique to anything else out in the market? And quite often, what you see statements that can apply sometimes to literally any product in the world, right? I'm trying to think. It's something like, it basically says, this is the most amazing product ever. This is the number one product in this category, and it offers nothing. Right? It offers no value. It doesn't explain anything. Maybe not number one, but you get a lot of messaging, this stuff like the best product for this pain point, right? So at least they've mentioned the pain point. That'll do. But then it's like, well, why are you the best product? Prove it. What is so special about that product? Because literally so many businesses made that claim that they have the best product for this, the best product for that. So I spoke to someone on my podcast the other day who said, you're actually not allowed to do this legally. It might be a US thing. I can't remember what he actually called it. Puffery, I think it was called. Which is basically where you're making a factual claim that yours is the best in the market when it's not, or when you can't back that up. And I think the way a lot of brands get around this is they just put that in quotations and then say, well, someone else said it. We're not making that claim. Someone said that about our product.
How can you be the best in the market? Which company is the best in the market in the world? I think nobody could claim it. In fact, I guess
it doesn't tell you anything, does it? Like it's a more top of funnel message to use. Get people's attention. They go, oh yeah, why are you the best? Oh, you've got loads of reviews. Cool. Now when they look at the product page, they want to know what's in this product. What the ingredients, or materials, or how do I use it? How do I make it? Whatever. They want to know what the more granular details of this product. And if you're not really selling that, going back to the t-shirt example, if it literally just said 100% cotton, white, and you get a size, I doubt they're going to sell much. Not for the price that True Classics charge, was not an extortionate amount.
Yeah, but from what you said, they didn't say like we are the best t-shirt in the world. It was more like towards the user experience, seeing the perfect fit for you. So that's what they are selling, really. I get your point about like adding value. We all want like a t-shirt that will fit perfectly.
Yeah, and I think they do make claims about it being the best t-shirt you'll ever wear or something like that. But it's probably on the advertisement level. You want to get people's attention with a really big claim like that. And then you justify and back up that claim when people are reading the details.
So if we just move into some sort of common sort of principles and systems you find yourself implementing, obviously in the case of this kind of, I guess, like bad copywriting that you described as an example, beyond just, I don't know, improving that, are there any kind of like hard systems you find yourself like recommending people put in place to kind of overcome a lot of the common CRO issues they're having?
Again, I suppose it comes down to the usability, anxiety, motivation factors. Those are the three pillars, for lack of another word. I know everyone's got the pillars of this and that, so I don't really like it. But if you're looking at those, and everything you should be doing and thinking about optimizing, it should be, is this making the website easier to use? Is it answering a question or a concern? Or is it motivating this person, like actually motivating this person? Right, so you've got to think about, like I said about that timer at the start, right? The reason that timer was on there is because the client probably saw some stats on that app, on the Shopify page for that app, which said this will improve your conversion rates by 30%, because they all claim that. But you've got to stop and think, well, why? What business did it improve conversion rate for 30%? What size of business was it? Because if it's a tiny business, then that could be really easy. But also, is that going to work for my audience? And for them, the answer was no, because their audience wasn't going to be rushed into a decision. If you said, if you were selling Ferraris and someone came in and he said, oh, you've got 15 minutes to buy this Ferrari or it might go, the person could be like, no, it's not. I can come out next week and that'll be there. Like, I'll buy the car when I'm ready.
So yeah, okay. So just there's so much variability in like kind of how from industry to industry, which makes complete sense. I think what I'm discovering is there's simultaneously a lot more to CRO than I initially thought. Like, it's way more complicated, but it's also unbelievably simple. You're breaking down all the different parts of that buying journey and just making sure everything justifies itself, holds water, and does its job.
It's simple in a way, because yes, you could just look at it and say, what are the questions that people ask about my product? Are we answering those questions on the page? If not, let's answer those questions. Right, that sounds pretty simple. However, where the testing comes in is you need to know how to answer that question properly. What is the best way of answering that question? So the guy I was chatting to the other day when I mentioned the puffery, he said he'd made a load, they tested two versions of their page. One had a load of scientific evidence and research and reports about their product, and that performed worse than the page that didn't have it. So people just, I don't know why, because I wasn't involved in the test, so I've got none of the research, but he was certain that would work, right? And it's a health related product, it's a dental product. So you would have thought that by having that research on there, it shows credibility and it shows more evidence that this is a good product and it didn't work. So that's why you have to do the testing, right? Because you can say, well, what are the questions? Here's the answer. Do people really want that answer? Because there are going to be some answers which are also negative as well. There was someone posted an example. Do you know the Aura? I think it's Aura, the ring, their like health tracker ring. Yeah, I can't remember what I think their version. Basically, this guy posted up an example of how copywriting works, and he showed their version versus his version. But they're not his client, so it wasn't an actual test he was running, but he was just using it as a point to make. I think their version said something like the most accurate health tracker on the market, something like that. And my immediate response to that was, firstly, you've informed me that a lot of the products on the market are not accurate, and secondly, you're already telling me that you're the most accurate, not the only accurate or the accurate. So you're actually telling me that your product is not accurate. That's basically where my head went with it. So they came up with that messaging somehow, right? And it's just, that's the sort of message which is potentially costing them business, because people are saying, well, I don't want the most accurate on the market. I want an accurate. If I'm going to spend that amount of money, I want accuracy for it.
What did his version do differently then?
Oh, I can't remember now. I didn't focus on that.
But I'm going to have to look that up. So
yeah, I'll be able to find it. But yeah, I just immediately, his version was better.
Did that make you want to get the Aura ring? Did his version sell it to you?
Not really, because I wasn't looking at it from that point of view. Really, I read the post and then I wanted to just add my comments on their side. So yeah, it was more just an example of how you can go down potentially the right thought process with your messaging, but actually it could be messaging that is harmful when you actually put it in front of customers. Another example someone gave me was, what's it called, a thing of paper, ream of paper for printers, and it said something like 99% jam free. Right, but that tells you that for every 100 sheets you print, one of them is going to jam, which actually sounds like quite a lot. I don't want my printer jamming at all. I'd hope it jams maybe once every 1,000 prints or something. But even if everyone else on the market jams at 1%, you're the only brand that everyone knows jams at 1%. If you have exactly the same product as a dozen other businesses, if you're the only one who's actually explaining a benefit and why it's so good for them, for the customer, as far as they're aware, you're the only product that does that, and therefore you are the unique special product.
Okay. And I had a question about like A/B testing, like for example the tagline about the Aura ring. How do you A/B test this? Like, because it's on a page, you've got maybe a button or something, but is it like for someone that would like to start A/B testing without like maybe like to start simple, what would be your advice?
Yeah, so you just need to use a tool, VWO, Convert, Web Trends Optimize, FitPy, any of those. They do all have drag and drop editors. I would be very, very careful using them. So if you are literally just going to change the headline, you can probably get away with using the normal drag and drop editor. If you are adding a subheader or doing anything more complicated, get a developer to do it and do it in code properly, because there's a tendency for them to just mess up how the page shifts about and stuff. But yeah, they're very simple. And to be honest, there's so much in A/B testing which it is pretty simple to do. They don't need to take dozens of hours to develop these solutions. You can have a lot of copy-based. You might need a developer to add tags, tracking tags, or call to actions with a pop-up or something, which is something I've done before. But generally, they are quite simple. So yeah, I would just get one of those tools. I would advise just getting a developer to do it most of the time.
You would still keep everything plugged with the tool for feedback. Like you will get a developer to develop you like maybe 2 variations, but those 2 variations will still be connected to the A/B testing tools.
It's like an overlay sort of thing. The tool is looking at your homepage, and then it's allowing you to then create changes on top of that page in a way, so when someone enters the test, if they hit the variant, the tool just changes your homepage to show that variant and the changes that are on the page. So it means aesthetic changes are really easy. So you can change copy, you can change buttons, you can move elements around the page. What's more difficult is stuff that requires back-end work as well. Let's say you had a compulsory field for phone number, and then you decided, actually, we don't use phone number, it's probably killing our conversions, let's get rid of it. You can't just hide it with an A/B test, because your form validation is still going to be looking for a phone number. So what you can do is inject a fake phone number. So you need a developer to do that. So you add a fake phone number to every single person. Or another method would be, do you make it non-compulsory, but then on the variant you actually make it look like it is compulsory. That makes sense. So that's not going to work perfectly, because there are still people who will then slip through because they will realize it's not compulsory. So I wouldn't do exactly like that, but yeah, so like front end stuff, really, really easy. You can build stuff onto the experience. When it comes to stuff that your back end is looking for, then that becomes a little bit more complicated, because you've still got to validate stuff.
I just got to ask, obviously we're in gamification, we're in sort of like audience engagement, and on your end with the CRO, you're about like customer engagement. Do you ever find yourself recommending like gamified content or more interactive kind of like modules into the customer journey?
I've looked at quizzes, like quizzes and product wizards a few times, but for brands that are a little bit more developed and have got the fundamentals in place already. So they have got some messaging that we think is working for them. They are answering the questions that people are asking. They are motivating people to purchase. So when I worked in gambling, we had the daily and monthly free games. So as long as I think you need to spend something like, or play something like £2 in the last 7 days, and that would allow you to play in the daily free game. And it was like the most valuable retention method we had by a long. People who played those games were much more likely to keep playing and spending money. Which is kind of bad because it's gambling, but it's an example of how it does work. When you give away free stuff, your daily free game, I don't think you could win money. I think you literally just won some free spins. Those free spins might then win you money, but not a lot. But it just giving people a winning experience. I don't think they did. Sorry, I should just be clear. I don't think it was rigged to give a winning experience on the free games to keep people playing. That wouldn't be allowed. But people also weren't losing on those games.
Just to kind of finish up, what do you think sort of are going to be the big trends we see in customer engagement over the next 5 years? Like, do you think we're going to see any kind of seismic shifts that people need to, in the sort of D2C space, need to, adopt sooner rather than later? Or do you think it's, I know this is like predict the future, get your crystal ball out, but I'm not sure I could tell you what's going to happen in a year. The way things are changing. 5 years is insane. I think generally brands are going to focus more on community, like community engagement, whether it's on Facebook or Discord, those sort of places where you can get people to feedback on products, you can get them to vote on what they think the next product should be. That's going to be really important. I'm seeing a lot of progress in paid memberships, or like paid loyalty schemes. I think I would like to see more focus on conversion. And I think there just needs to be a better understanding of what CRO really is. People think we're going to come in and double their conversion rate, and that's not going to happen. It's conversion rate optimization, not conversion rate fixing, which would be that. But also, there's a lot more to it than just conversion rates. Right? If you just wanted to improve average order values, that's where we can come in and help. Right? Because we can do testing on different bundles or different upsell options and things like that. We come up with a messaging that can then be used in adverts and emails. For one client, I'm also looking at their unboxing experience at the moment to improve retention, because it is still a conversion rate that we're trying to improve. Right? Second purchase, third purchase, that's a conversion rate that we are trying to improve. So instead of thinking of conversion rate optimization as literally the one e-commerce purchase, we're actually looking at what do we need customers to do, what actions do we want them to take, and how do we improve the value of that action, I suppose. that does make such a massive difference though when you open up a product that you've ordered and someone's obviously taken a lot of time and care, and it's an experience to actually open it, whereas when you just get the Jiffy bag and you're like, oh, here we go, it's a little bit like, oh, you know.
Well, that's kind of the situation with this client at the moment. Like, you open up the box and it looks nice, that the packaging is fine, but it is very much a take stuff out of the box and that's it, you're done. Whereas there's so much opportunity with this business in particular, just to create engagement. That community side of it, really, there's big opportunity for them there.
We were talking about community and engagement and people voting for products and stuff. So that's, for example, a good thing that can be done with Dreamify, you know, like with gamification. You can use games, you can use polls, you know, and try to engage with the community, and not just like talk to them when you need something, you know, but also trying to give them like regular engagement, you know, like games.
Yeah. Well, so actually one thing we were looking at for this client was, what do we get them to do after they made a few purchases? How can we get more value out of a person who's buying a bit? So it's, well, what other channels do we want them to engage with? We want them to join the Facebook community. We want their phone number for SMS reasons. We want them to get them on social media. Then there might be another thing as well. So how do we do that? And at the moment, we're looking at probably a monthly competition, but we still need a tool that can say, this person is a follower, they are in this group, they have taken this action, they've left a review, they've sent us some UGC, all that sort of stuff. Because it kind of gamifies the experience for them, because they score more points, then get more interest to the competition, and it gets the business the bits that they need.
On this one, like the APIs from the different social media are not letting external third parties fetching like all this data. So for example, to confirm that someone has been following a group or has been I went to a group, you will have to still do it manually. There is no way to really fetch like all the details and stuff. So that's why it's a bit tricky, you know, like the social media, they want to keep their own data and they don't want to share it.
I know there's a fair few competitions where I've clicked follow us on Twitter and then not had to do anything else, because it then opens up the Twitter login as a pop-up, and you can see it on the screen that it's telling you you've ticked that off and you've earned those points already.
That's why in a point like gamification is not here to force people doing things. It's more like trying to communicate on a positive way, to tell them, look, you've been engaging with our brand. The way we do it, we use games, gamification, and positive experiences. You are talking about like positive behavior and things like that. So in a sense, if you've been clicking this follow us button and not doing it, that's fine. You've been like considering following the brand. If you love the brand, you will follow it. So you will become like a valuable member of the community. If you don't like it much, or if you don't know yet, maybe it was not the right time for you to follow this brand, and that's perfectly fine. But with gamification, we will keep like pushing those kind of positive interactions and try to make you become like an ambassador of the brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. This has been a great conversation. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks for all your insights into CRO. If people want to get in touch with you, whereabouts can they find you?
Best place is probably LinkedIn. That's just Will Laurenson. I've got a hand pointing at my name, hand emoji pointing at my name. Makes me a bit more obvious, and it weeds out the automated outreach. Yeah, that's the best place. Or customerswhoclick.com. It's my website. We can find out a bit more about what we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Will.
Dreamify.